Guys ready? I'll call to order tonight's Fishers Plan Commission meeting. If you will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Okay, our roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Stewart. Here. Mr. Zimmerman. Mr. Fain.
Here.
Ms. Logan. Here. Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Moulter. Ms. Stoller. Here. Mr. Richards.
Here.
Ms. Kelly.
Here.
Ms. Lang.
Here.
And Mr. Stevenson.
Here. We do have a quorum. Our July 7th, 2021 minutes were circulated. Any questions or comments?
Approved.
We have a motion by Pete to approve our minutes.
Second.
We have a second by Kim. All those in favor, use a voting sign aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Our next agenda item on our agenda is a resolution for Consolidated Fishers I-69 Economic Development Area, and we will have Mr. Lawrence Summer present for us.
Good evening, Commissioners. The resolution before you is a procedural step for amending a consolidated economic development area for the I-69 area. It was previously passed at the Redevelopment Commission. If it is approved here, it will go to the City Council for approval and then back to the Redevelopment Commission for final approval. Basically, all this plan does is ask that the plans indicated by the Redevelopment Commission conform with the general city plans. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Pete?
I just want to make sure everybody has a thorough understanding of what we're trying to do here. This is very reminiscent of what we did with the overlay districts along I-69 during that time. Really, it gives the City Council another bite at the apple to what developments are going to come into certain areas. We've been getting a lot of inquiries as related to the old Fry's headquarters, right? And there was many things that were kind of coming to the city which really didn't have the fit and finish, if you will, of what we wanted in that particular area. So we wanted to make sure that anything that was going to go in there, again, met our development standards, but more than that, met really the type of development we wanted in that area. So I think I categorized it pretty well there, Megan, from our standpoint, from policy standpoint of what we're doing. But that's really the necessity going on here. That's the major reason for it. Instead of letting somebody who made and fit within a zoning box, the council and the city could not stop anybody from their land rights of doing anything. We're not going to stop them, but we're saying they need to come back in front of the council and tell us why that's the right thing for that area to go in. So we have that other bite at the apple. So, and again, we took probably a little bit of guff about it when we did it before, but I think it's turned out fabulously, right, in the areas around the city where we've done it in the past. So, sorry, Megan, maybe you can talk about it.
Sure. For the record, Megan Baumgartner, Director of Economic and Community Development. Pete, that was an item from last time. So this item tonight is for the TIF. So within the tax increment financing ability that we have within the community, there's an economic revitalization area and an economic development area. So tonight it's adding additional properties into that. So that was something that Plan Commission approved before.
So this is just a procedural step to add area to TIF.
Exactly.
Okay.
Properties into the
You can
TIF.
forget everything I just said.
That was a perfect summary though
Although
of
it
last
doesn't
time.
fly.
Yeah, that was a perfect summary of last time.
And yes, this is a procedure per state statute for modifying these areas.
Well, Pete, I'm glad you still brought that up, so we do have confirmation. Any other questions or comments? I'll
I'll
entertain
make
a
a
motion.
motion to approve.
We have a motion by Pete to approve. Second. We have a second by Kim. Kay, roll call, please.
Mr. Stewart. Aye. Mr. Fain.
Aye.
Ms. Logan.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Ms. Stoller. Aye. Mr. Richards. Aye. Ms. Kelly. Aye. Ms. Lang. Aye. Mr. Stevenson.
Yes. The motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next agenda item is RZ-21-5 Milford Park. Lynn?
I need to recuse myself from the Milford Park and the next one as well. The property adjoins mine.
We'll make that note of the recusal. Thank you. Matter number RZ-21-5 Milford Park. Leonard Homes of Indiana, Inc. requests a rezone of 60 acres from R2 to PUD residential for a 121-unit single-family residential development known as the Milford Park PUD. The property is generally located on the east side of Florida Road north of 113th Street. And we have Megan Schaefer to report for the staff.
Yes, thank you. For the record, Megan Schaefer with the Planning and Zoning Department. So the next two items are located in the same area of Fishers. So the concept plans for both developments are shown here on this aerial. But the first item, Milford Park, is identified in red. So this is a proposed single-family residential development, a maximum of 121 lots, and the builder is Lennar Homes. Just to point out some features of this development, there will be some right-of-way improvements that are needed, one being along Florida Road, which is existing, and then also to the north, there will be a Cynthian Road extension from the existing segment of Cynthian Road to Florida Road. The development is also proposing to preserve trees in the southeast corner of the development, as well as including an internal sidewalk network around the pond and through the homes. They'll also be stubbing south to future development. So here are the development standards, and I'm sorry, those are pretty hard to read. I can zoom in here, but. So the underlying zoning district for this development will be R4, and then highlighted in blue are the deviations from the R4 standards. Something that has changed from when the staff report was written is that the side yard setback has been updated to reflect what the UDO currently allows, which is 10 feet. Otherwise, they are requesting a bit smaller lot sizes, and they are also asking for an increase in the impervious surface coverage. Here are some examples of the home elevations. These were approved at tonight's PUD committee. I'm also going to invite Jason Taylor with our engineering department up here to give a brief overview of the road improvements in this area. It will also align with the development that we'll talk about next, but this will just give you a general overview of the right-of-way improvements for both of these developments.
Thank you, Megan. For the record, Jason Taylor, Director of Engineering. Before you can see that this is an exhibit that shows our recently completed capital projects, roadway improvements, our future funded projects, as well as the ones that we do not currently have funding, but we are pursuing federal grants for. Let me see if I can, this gives a little bit more busy, but it shows you the ones in the red are the ones that are currently unfunded, but have been included, a majority of them, in our thoroughfare plan. The one that is not currently funded and not in our thoroughfare plan is the one there at Cynthian and Florida Road, which we've been talking internally of the need of potentially having a roundabout at this future intersection. But the thought process is for all of these roundabouts and these future road connections, one of the main takeaways is Cynthian Road will connect to Florida and then essentially go all the way down to 104th and then down to 96th Street. There's been an overarching conversation of whether the city pursue a north-south connection of Cynthian Road from 136th Street all the way down to 96th. The need for that from a transportation standpoint is not there, as well as the justification from a financial standpoint, because this area here is very unique that it has Southeastern Parkway running northwest, southeast, and it's a major thoroughfare that was originally a state highway, State Road 238, I believe was the number. So the capacity of that road is there for the future expansion of the development in this area. One of the philosophies that transportation is kind of morphed into is we went away from the added travel lanes unless absolutely necessary to increase capacity. We now focus on, with technology and different unique kind of intersection types, We're focusing on the intersection improvements themselves. So in these particular areas, we're heavily focusing on roundabouts because we have found that they are safe, efficient, and can move the traffic well. And so what you can see here is that we have already started to make a kind of a dent in the future needs, and then we are going to continue to do so.
Thank you, Jason. And I would also just like to highlight that the petitioner did hold a neighborhood meeting for this development on Monday, July 26th at the Welchel Springs Amenity Center, which is directly east of this proposed development. And there were concerns brought up regarding just road improvements and traffic. So thank you, Jason, for that overview. With that, staff is supportive of this development, but I will turn it over to Steve Harden, who is representing Lennar, to provide some additional information.
Thank you, Megan. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Steve Harden. I'm a partner in the law firm of Fagery Drinker, and I'm pleased to be here representing Lennar. And from Lennar Homes is Craig Jensen and Ty Reinhardt. Here, if you have any questions, particularly for them tonight. Megan did a good job of giving an overview. I just wanted to add a few things. Number one is that the price range of the homes are expected to run between $420,000 and $500,000 with an expected average of $480,000. And as Megan mentioned, has been quite a bit of preliminary work with the city, primarily on the pedestrian connections. And let's see. You probably saw this in your packet, but what is planned as part of the Geist Greenway connection for this project, which is the trail system that the city is working on from 96th Street all the way up to Saxony, 136th Street, mainly using the Duke power line easement, but at different places it goes outside of that. And so along the Florida Road perimeter of the Lennar development, they're planning to build that leg of the Geist Greenway asphalt trail and path. And then you can see interior, they have a whole series of over 2 miles of sidewalks, and then another internal trail that you can see in green as well. The main issue that came up with the neighbors, and I know that a number of them are here tonight, there was a lot of questions about Cynthian Road, the timing of the roundabout, so we're very appreciative that Jason is here tonight. I'll try to give you a few updates on kind of some of the questions that the neighbors had, and I'm sure they're here, and I'm sure we encourage them to come. Some of the questions had to do with, the fact that Cynthian Road, as it goes from, let me pull this back up so you can see it. Actually, let me see if I can. I'm just pushing buttons now, Megan. How do I switch this back to the one we had before? Like that? There we go. Thank you. So right now, Southeastern Parkway runs here. There's the planned roundabout at Cynthian and Southeastern, and then the existing leg of the Cynthian Road has been built, and it stops at the edge of the farm field today. And it is a 2-lane separated by a boulevard median today. That is a 120-foot wide right-of-way. As we've talked before here, primary arterials are the second biggest roads that the city has, only exceeded by highways. So a primary arterial is intended to be able to convey a lot of traffic. And so it's a 120-foot wide right-of-way, which allows, over the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years, the ability to expand that road if ever needed to a 4-lane road. And so as we were sharing with the neighbors what the plan was, some of that information was new to them. It was new to some of them that there would be an extension of Cynthian from where it is now to Florida Road. And we shared with them that the builder comes in and the city tells us what we're going to do with respect to that. And there were some understandable concerns within Welchel Springs, and I'm going to stop talking and let them come up and talk, but we're glad that Jason's here. We told them that we would give a heads up to the city planning department, engineering department, so they can be prepared to talk about, are there things that can be done in the future for traffic calming, speed limits, things like that with Cynthian Road, which today does go right through the middle of their neighborhood. And so that we just wanted to share with you, that was probably the biggest concern and discussion that we had, was about the fact of Cynthia Road being extended, that the city is, requiring the builder to do that, and the questions that surrounded that. So we would respectfully request your favorable recommendation tonight. We'd be happy to answer any questions, but I think the staff did a great job of addressing the issues that we've worked out with them. And as Megan mentioned, we did receive a favorable recommendation from the PUD committee on the architecture tonight, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Any questions?
Yeah, hey, Jason, just so for, currently, I think if we get down toward Welchel Springs, that portion of the road has been deeded back to city streets and Fishers, correct? The other road, which continues to go southbound, is County Road until we take this over through annexation, correct?
Correct.
So, because if you look at the entryway as it's coming south on Florida Road, the road is distinctly different than what's further down Florida Road, like in front of where this project's gonna be. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna build the road to the city standards as we continue it southbound. So you can expect to see the road look like what's on that northern end section coming off of Hamlin Southeastern Boulevard, right?
Yeah, 100%. And then once this gets through the process of Plan Commission, Council, and then it's a project that they're moving forward with, they'll submit actual plans to the city, in which we would, in the engineering department, planning and zoning department, would do a more kind of deep dive into those and technical review of it, in which we would talk through the acceleration, deceleration lanes, turn lanes, things of that nature, the actual alignment of the intersections across from the two developments, this one as well as the cove at Thorpe Creek. So yes.
And then also the S-turn that sits there at where that branches off, it kind of goes around that piece of ground.
Yes,
there.
that is, I'm glad you brought that up. So on this map, you can see that it's a green-yellow, which means that we are currently developing a project to correct that in coordination with them as part of the right-of-way dedication. The right-of-way would be dedicated to the city in order for us to make those improvements with the Geist Greenway project.
Right. So I think if you're looking at that, because some of the questions that came before when we looked at this, at least I think at council meeting at first reading, was really the road. And, it was repaved by the county recently, who quite frankly didn't do all that great of a job, in my opinion, paving it, because I'm down in the lot. But I think if the residents start to take a look at the roads on where that south end is, coming off the new roundabout, and the north end coming off of Hamlin Southeastern, you can see the type of road that's gonna continue down and join what it's gonna be built as, how wide it's gonna be, et cetera, the build type, because it is a country road now, there's no question about it.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, so it's gonna be distinctly different than what they have there now.
Yeah, there'd be a significant improvement on it, not just from the standpoint of the material and the thickness of that pavement, but also from the width as well as the turn lanes.
Yeah.
Very much so. And one thing to also bring up is the comment about Cynthia Road within Welchel Springs. That is a single lane in each direction with the boulevard. Yes, it is classified as an arterial, but if you look at our Comp 2040 plan, there are no plans for us to improve, widen that into more than two lanes, one in each direction. And that goes back to the conversation or comment that I had made about intersections are really the way that we are improving traffic flow throughout the city.
Awesome, thanks, Jason.
Any other questions? Well, at this time, I would open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the commission may step to the podium. Please provide your name and address and any remarks that you may have related to the matter. I see we have a significant crowd today, so I'll just give a few instructions. I would want to call on first anyone who's here to be a spokesperson for a homeowners association, and then we will call on others. So do we have anyone who's a spokesperson? Well, anyone else may approach the podium. And I will say we will have to limit your comments to 2 minutes.
Connie Martin, 12201 Florida Road. And if you look at it, I live right there, across from where Welchel Springs comes out onto Florida Road is almost directly across from our driveway. We've lived there for 40 years. I've been to countless zoning and planning board meetings with every new neighborhood you take into account. I think it's ridiculous that Florida Road is going to be a primary feeder. It ends at Southeastern Parkway, it ends at 104th Street. Anyway, I'm here again, this time to congratulate the current administration and the planning and engineering departments who have successfully driven out 2 more heritage, longtime family farms from Fall Creek Township. This was achieved by the final straw when you changed the walking trail design, making it now run within 40 feet of one resident's front door and running the trail all along the south side of the other's property. All this without even the courtesy of informing them that you changed the design. We were all at the township meeting at the Fall Creek Township about 1.5 years ago. The plan was presented. Fisher's presenter threatened eminent domain to achieve your goals, as if eminent domain was meant for fishers to have a walking trail. I think that's a little skewed take on eminent domain. When the plan changed, why wasn't the affected property owners informed? Did they have a chance to remonstrate? No. You have added thousands of homes in Fall Creek Township, doubling the traffic without adding or planning one bit of new infrastructure. We non-incorporated residents came to multiple meetings. We didn't fight the development, but we did come to these meetings pleading with alternatives, asking that you have developers at least leave undeveloped strips for future right-of-ways. We talked about if you would have left unfinished strips for a right-of-way to continue Cynthia Ann Road down straight to 113th, which could then be carried on all the way down to Lawrence Township.
I'm respectfully going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay.
Your time is expiring.
All right, I appreciate that the developer is going to 10-foot side instead of 5-foot. That's probably 10 less cars going down my road. It was sold as empty nester neighborhood. I haven't seen any age requirement, which means it will just turn into another family neighborhood where our schools, with your development and uneducated school board, our school rankings are
I'm going to have,
dropping.
I'm
All
going to have
right.
to ask you to wrap up, and that's not on the agenda.
I know, but
Thank you. Anyone else? At this time, I will close the public hearing. Any additional comments from the board? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to make a favorable recommendation to City Council.
We have a motion. We have a second by Rick. Kay, roll call, please.
Mr. Stewart. Mr. Fain.
Aye.
Ms. Logan. Aye. Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Ms. Stoller. Aye. Mr. Richards. Aye. Ms. Kelly. Sorry. She's recused. Ms. Lang. Aye. And Mr. Stevenson.
Yes, the motion carries. The next matter on our agenda is matter number R2-21-6, Cove at Thorpe Creek. Grand Communities LLC requests a rezone of 107 acres from R2 to PUD residential for a 192-unit single-family residential development known as the Cove at Thorpe Creek PUD. The property is generally located on the east and west side of Florida Road, north of 113th Street, and we have Megan Schaefer once again to present for the staff.
Yes, thank you. So this next development is directly west of what was just discussed and directly north. So just to highlight again some features, Florida Road improvements would be required as a part of this development, as well as that Cynthia Ann Road extension. They're also stubbing to future development to the south. constructing the Geist Greenway segment, and then preserving trees along the existing Thorpe Creek and placing that in a public access easement for a future trail in that area as identified on the city's bike and pedestrian future land use map. Just to highlight some of the pedestrian connections in this development, so as mentioned, the Geist Greenway identified here in green will be constructed with this development. They'll be connecting then that Geist Greenway to Florida Road through an additional pedestrian path that will then connect up to Cynthia Ann Road, giving the Welchel Springs residents direct access to that Geist Greenway. This development is broken up into 3 segments. So the first segment is the Grand Estates Collection. This is an extension of the existing Thorpe Creek neighborhood, and you can see that highlighted here in red. So this development will have the underlying zoning district of the R3 residential, and you can see here highlighted in blue the deviations from that standard. So they are requesting, I believe these are actually going to be a bit larger than what the code requires, but then they're asking for a little bit of a allowance for the front setback. As with the last development, we have received some revisions based on when the staff report was written, and they are proposing 10-foot side yard setbacks for this development. And that is true for all 3 sections. The second section is the Designer Collection. This is targeted more towards the move-up home buyers, and this will follow the R5 residential zoning district, so a little bit higher density. Again, highlighted in blue are the deviations from the standards, so they are requesting a little bit smaller of a lot size. And then the last would be the Patio Collection. This is targeted towards an older demographic. This also follows the R5 zoning district. And again, very similar to the Designer Collection, just with a bit of a smaller lot size. All of these home elevations will be included in the PUD ordinance, and they were approved at PUD committee meeting tonight. I will now open it
Megan,
up.
I just, a quick question
Yeah.
for you. You were saying the revision was a 10-foot setback on the side, and that's for all 3 phases?
That is for all 3.
Is that in compliance with the UDO?
That is in compliance with the UDO.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep. All right, I'll turn it over to Steve Harden, who's representing Fisher Homes.
Megan. Good evening, Mr. President. For the record, my name is Steve Harden. I'm a partner of the law firm of Fagery Drinker, and I'm pleased to be representing Grand Communities, who is the development arm of Fisher Homes, and Fisher Homes, the home builder. With me from Grand Communities, Hillary Lappin and Jason Wisniewski here. And then also from Fisher Homes, the home builder, Amanda Deerdorf and Brad Kreiner are here also. Megan did a great job of giving you an overview. Only a couple things I'll just add as some highlights. The price point for the homes in the Grand Estates are in the $750,000 to $930,000 range. The standards are in the PUD ordinance are matching or exceeding the existing standards for Thorpe Creek, the woods at Thorpe Creek, which is immediately adjacent. It's very similar to what we did a few years ago, where we added some additional land to add a couple of extra cul-de-sacs to it. We simply modeled the PUD ordinance with the same standards that exist today, and that's what we've done here as well. Then the Designer Collection that Megan mentioned, those will be in the move-up buyers. Those are in the $405,000 to $535,000 price point. And then the patio homes are expected to start in the 300s and average between $440,000 and $475,000. Megan did a great job of explaining the concept of the Geist Greenway and the trail improvements, and those are in there. She also mentioned the update for adding the setbacks. One thing that we also were asked to do that was an amendment as well was to incorporate a provision that if the building permits are issued prior to the land being annexed into the city, that the builders would pay the normal impact fees. So there might be a situation where the city has us hold off on annexing the property at some point, so we would still pay all the fees, much like we did at Vermillion, for example, where that was zoned and planned under the city prior to annexation. So we've added that agreement as well into the PUD ordinance. The other thing I wanted to mention was that we've met with the HOA board and the homeowners in Thorpe Creek because this project will be, the Grand Estate section is adjacent to the existing Thorpe Creek, and so the question we posed to the HOA board was, would you like this additional 15 lots to be part of the existing HOA, or would you prefer them not to be? And we've had some back and forth good discussion. Jen Matthews is here, straight from the doctor in therapy for her broken foot, but she's been wonderful with her. Sean O'Grady, former city employee, people might remember Sean, and Dan Hartman as well on the board. And we've got a term sheet worked out with the board that agrees on kind of what the scope of where the common area would be that would be annexed into the Thorpe Creek HOA, as well as a number of other things that we've agreed to do. And then we've got some homework to do between now and council. So Mr. Peterson and Ms. Stoller, you should expect to hear us giving a report at council that we've agreed to work in good faith with them to work through a number of other issues that were some outstanding things within the current HOA and some improvements within the neighborhood that would, if we're going to bring in these 15 additional lots. I just want to put that on the record that we've been working collaboratively and appreciate their work with us. We would plan to have a full report for you on that by the time we get to council. With that, we'd be happy to answer any other questions. Otherwise, we'd respectfully request your favorable recommendation tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Any questions of the petitioner? At this time, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the commission may step to the podium. Please provide us with your name and address, and I will request that you limit your remarks to the matter that is at hand here that we're discussing.
Yes, my name is Richard Carey, 12120 Lantana Lane. It's Fishers 46037. Excuse me. I am currently a resident in the Welchel Springs subdivision that is due east of the proposed, I think it's the, whatever, not the patio, but the mid-level. The Ziner section, sorry. I have a couple of issues with regards to, one, the lot size of the proposed neighborhood. Currently, the homes that are along the east fencing that is currently there are roughly about 12,000 square feet. So we're at about 80 feet wide, so a 40-foot. So basically, I'm going to see two houses directly behind my property. Also, I've yet to hear anything with regards to how the builder plans on handling the fencing that is actually there. The previous owner, if I recall correctly, if it was explained to me when I purchased the home, requested that that fencing actually be put up to separate Welchel Springs from his property. So if that fencing is on my property, within that, me as well as my neighbors have no intentions of removing that. Also, we currently have a easement that is within our property line, how that already has some small drainage issues. If we're putting, because currently there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that houses that run along Lantana Lane. So if they're planning on only 40 feet wide, that now has more drainage coming into our, because obviously you're going to grade that out for those homes. I think it's already been discussed with regards to Cynthia. We would like to know if there's what the speed restrictions will be, if there's anything other than just a speed limit sign, any type of, I would say maybe a speed bump or something, but obviously that's further down the line. Those are my main concerns, because obviously bringing in that many homes actually will reduce our value. I've yet to hear anything with regards to those specific issues. Those are the ones that are with regards to my neighbors along Lantana Lane. I know some of the other ones who live in the maintenance-free section, or the maintained section. Yeah, that they have some similar issues, because the fencing runs along Lantana down Awaken to separate that particular the divide for the property. like I said, I know this is all procedural here at the beginning, so there's other steps, but I would like for those steps to be addressed. Because looking at this, the lot area is for the, well, that's the patio section. I don't know how you get back to your other one.
And Richard, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up
No
your time.
problem. Got you. But those are the primary concerns because one, traffic, two, you're bringing in a lot more with regards to development for drainage, easements, all that good stuff. And then specifically the fencing because if it's on our property, I'm not getting rid of it to placate Fisher Homes. No disrespect to them, so.
Thank you. Anyone else? At this time, I will close the public hearing. I have a few questions, if the board would have others. I would say, Steve, can you address the fencing issue that they have?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate Mr. Carey's comments. We did have the neighbors meeting. Jason Wisniewski, Jason, raise your hand, was there. There was quite a few people brought up the discussion about the fencing. I don't remember if Mr. Carey was able to attend. No worries at all. But I encouraged Mr. Wisniewski to hand out his business card to anybody along that shared. Well, let me go back to. Let's see. Let me get this up. So we're talking about is along this shared property line and this shared property line. And so he handed out, I saw he handed out a number of cards and invited, and I encouraged at the meeting for anyone that had an interest in that, and we can still do this now, anyone had an interest that encouraged them to reach out and get his card. And so he handed out his card to people and said whoever would like to, he would come before the Plan Commission meeting from last week to now to walk the shared property line because some people wanted to be able to have the fence kept, and there were some issues about easements on their property and trees on their property. And what I found in my years of experience is the best way to do it is have the builder just go out and walk the property line with the neighbors and hear from them exactly what their concerns are, what they would like. And so he offered to do that, hand out his cards. He did. I checked with him again a couple days ago and again today. He hadn't heard from anybody yet that they wanted him to do it. We're hearing Mr. Carey here, and I'm sure there's probably a few other people that might like to still do that. We have time to be able to do that between now and council, and so he's here again. And Mr. Carey particularly, Mr. Wisniewski, when we get done, exchange contact information, and he's willing to come out there and do that. So I believe the easy answer is anything that's on their property, we're not changing anything. So if there's any trees on their property, any fences on their property, we're not doing anything that's on the neighbor's property. And so I just wanted to clear that up. And if anyone has any particular issues or questions that they want to walk the property line, we can still make additional things to be done between now and council. They just need to be able to just reach out and say they'd like to do that. And the one other thing I think Mr. Carey mentioned about the number of lots. Mark, can you tell me what the math was again? Can you just add those up? 7 and 7. So it looks like there's about 7 homes here, and the proposal is about 7 homes as well. So and then up here, I think it's 15 and 16. So they're essentially the same number of lots, maybe a little bit different sizes and configurations, but it's approximately the same number of lots. I just wanted to mention that. So Fisher Homes has been completely willing and happy to meet with anybody. They've offered to do it, and they still offer to do it tonight. And so between now and council, we'll be happy to go out and meet with anybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one regarding the drainage concern. What plans are there to address these issues? Are there different elevations in the property that's being developed compared to the surrounding areas?
And I see that our city engineer is still here, which is awesome because we always say this at these meetings, and thank you for asking. So normally traffic drainage, those are things that normally people just normally would say, gosh, it's going to get worse if you put more development in. The reality is right now it sheet drains off farm fields and goes wherever it goes. And what will happen is with the development, there will be controlled drainage requirements. So the city and the county have drainage requirements, and they'll have to meet that. And so the stormwater, the general rule is it has to be released post-development at a rate slower than it's going off today. So it will be improved. Jason's here if you want a better answer than that, but that's normally what the answer is.
Basically, what Steve was discussing 100% is accurate. In addition, if it is a situation that the drainage is being issues are being caused by the field or the undeveloped area, with the development is where we will handle that and address that within our review, within the tax submittal process. If it's something that is on site and specific to the actual properties and the lots themselves, that's something that it would be on the homeowner themselves to work with either their builder or their own contractor to address. But within that drainage easement, we do we have grants as well to help supplement anything that is specific to the site, and that is handled within our Public Works Department. I'd be happy to give cards out to anyone that needs one to be able to pass the information along.
Jason, I have another question, I guess, to piggyback on the drainage issue. There was also the concern or question regarding speed. Can you elaborate or address that for us as well?
I was trying to quickly look to see what the existing speed limit is within the already constructed Cynthia Ann Road segment of Welchel Springs, and I couldn't quickly find it, but we would probably match that, but there is the opportunity for us to reduce that to match our other neighborhood roadways, which would be 25 miles per hour. It is a small segment of road, so to have it at 25 would not be unheard of. Then it comes down to working with our police department to ensure the enforcement, because we can post it at 5 miles per hour, but people are going to drive what they would drive, right? Specific to the speed bumps, throughout the city, we are not in favor of speed bumps or speed humps. Speed tables at the pedestrian crossings, such as the Nickel Plate Trail, major greenways, that's a different story because we are able to handle the drainage. But then also from the standpoint of speed bumps, our snow plows, they are not able to traverse those speed bumps well. They cause the damage to the roadways as well as our equipment, in addition to emergency services and their responses times in their equipment and vehicles as well. So speed bumps are not something we would look at, but speed limit as well as police enforcement would be another approach.
Thank you.
Yep.
I would entertain a motion.
Well, there's another couple quick questions here. And
go ahead.
Jason, thank you for answering that, because I think you hit everything in the head. And I can't tell, because I'm on Google Maps right now, it appears that there's some sort of bushes planted all along that northern border of the particular section we're talking about, and there appears to be a fence there too. So I think that's not going to be touched, according to you, Steve, because everything is south of there from what I'm seeing.
I apologize, Pete.
Yeah, and again, I've got Google Maps up, Steve, so
Okay.
I'm looking at something totally different than you are.
Okay.
So I can just, if I'm looking, I'm gonna go walk it at some point this week, maybe next week when I get back, but I'm gonna just go look at it, because I don't think you guys are planning on touching any of that. I live in a neighborhood very similar to what they're talking about, with houses that back up on one another, right, where I have an easement running in the back of my yard, right? So, and I can tell you it gets wet when it gets wet, and it's dry when it's dry, and that's what the easement is supposed to do. It's supposed to collect water as water comes in, and there's no stopping that, which is why we bring those, lakes and everything else, so they can try to channel the water down there. They handle it really well through TAC and get all that stuff handled. There's no buffering that's required on this portion at all, although there appears to be some buffering there, and I can't really tell. But I know I put buffering up in my yard, okay, because I wanted buffering from my rear neighbors who are right adjacent to that, and I had to bring it outside in the easement, or else I get yelled at by Jason in Public Works. So I had to do that for my neighborhood. So it's very similar to what's going on here. I think, I constantly hear, and I'm going to say 50% of every phone call or email I get from the residents, both in and out of my particular district, is one of twofold: traffic and speed. Okay, I will tell you that we are in a highly desirable city where people want to move to. Tell me how to get them to stop moving here, and we'll stop building houses. That's my basic answer. These guys do market studies, they see it, people want houses, they want to move into your city, we're welcoming them into the city, is what we're doing. And we are underhoused big time, I can tell you that for a fact, with how many people want to come in here. As it relates to speed, every time I get the police to go into a particular neighborhood and do speed traps, they arrest 50% of your children, and then most of them are soccer moms taking their kids to soccer practice. It is not somebody outside of your neighborhood speeding, it's the people inside your neighborhood are speeding. So we talk about it all the time at the HOA meetings, talk about speed, particularly with children present. We can't really do much about that other than post speed limit signs. To put all the other mitigation standards in there, I'm constantly in a battle with Cambridge right now, wanting to add all sorts of stuff in Cambridge to stop people from running down through there. So again, I appreciate what you're saying, and I listen to it, and it's a concern, But, we also have to make sure that we're maintaining a level playing field all around and doing everything we possibly can for not only the maintenance of the city, which Jason and the Public Works have to do, but, also giving you guys a livable neighborhood to be in. So from all the water stuff and all the drainage stuff that's been kind of bantered about here on a number of occasions, you're gonna have drainage issues at times, you're just going to, right? I can see them in the back of my yard, but again, it's either when people are overwatering or when I get a lot of rain. But primarily it works. And again, extra traffic people, everything we do is gonna add extra traffic, and we're trying to keep up to it as best we possibly can. I think Jason and the group that got together on the 2040 plan for the roadway improvements, everything else, are doing a fabulous job. I'm a huge roundabout guy. I like them. They get you a little dizzy when you go through Carmel, but I don't know that we'll add as many as Carmel has, but I think from our particular area, it's also gonna mitigate speed, because you can't go into those roundabouts at a very quick rate of speed. Some of you may argue that going through the one up there at Southeastern Boulevard at times, but for the most part, they bring traffic down. So again, I hear all what you're saying, but from our side, we still have to make sure that we're doing development to a development standard that's gonna meet the fit and finish of the city, and it's gonna meet the requirements that we have for future residents. And I think these guys have hit the nail on the head with this stuff. I mean, Ann has been out there forever, and Connie, I know you've been out there forever, and I understand it, I get it. I like driving through the farmland too, but, I can't stop people from selling their land, and I can't take away land rights from people from building houses on top of the land that they own. So when people come to us and they say, okay, I'm done, I'm throwing up my hands, I gotta move, I'm gonna go retire, or I'm gonna go move off of Connecticut Avenue like Ann's gonna do, I think, and, do all that kind of thing, that's your right to do that, right? So again, with the residents I have here in the room, I understand your issues, I'm always willing to listen to those issues, but again, I think we've got a highly desirable city here, and we've got absolutely top-notch people in our departments, from Jason's department to Public Works, to the TAC Review Committee, to everything else going on here. We hold these developers accountable at every single level we possibly can to bring it. Does that mean that there's not an issue here or there? There's an issue here or there every single time you go. We just need to try to mitigate those. But I certainly appreciate the effort by the developers coming in here. It's a great piece of land. It's right around the corner from my house. I drive this road virtually every day. Yeah, I'm down Florida Road because it's a better way for me to come in than to go down Oleo Road by all the schools. I don't like going down there because there's too many traffic lights in my opinion, right? So I come in the back way. So again, I appreciate everything that's being done here. I think the projects are awesome, by the way, and I think they all look really well, and I think they'll fit in with the community very nicely. So, and if no one else has any comments, I'm going to make a motion to make a favorable recommendation.
Mr. President, I
Yes.
apologize. As an indulgence, Jen Matthews, who's the HOA president from Thorpe Creek, she was not able to jump up quick enough with her broken foot, and she's indicated she might want to make a comment, if that would be okay with you.
Yes, you may.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Jen Matthews, president of the Thorpe Creek Homeowners Association. Address is 12202 Poplar Bend Boulevard. And I just wanted to speak on behalf of Thorpe Creek. We are affected by this development primarily through the Grand Estates section. We are in favor of the project, have appreciated Fisher Homes reaching out to the Thorpe Creek HOA and the residents to work through it and do something that we think is beneficial for both us and them. So we would be in favor of this project being approved. So thank you.
Thank you.
Tell Sean hello too for me.
With that, I would entertain a motion.
Motion, make a favorable recommendation to City Council.
We have a motion. We have a second. Kay, roll call, please.
Mr. Stewart. Mr. Fain.
Aye.
Ms. Logan. Aye. Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Ms. Stoller. Aye. Mr. Richards. Aye. Ms. Lang. Aye. And Mr. Stevenson.
Yes, and the motion carries. The next agenda item is TA-21-43 Nickel Plate Coal Text Amendment, Residential Conversions. It's a consideration of a text amendment to the Nickel Plate District Code Figure 1.4, building types to require newly constructed residential dwellings to remain residential for 3 years prior to a residential conversion to commercial. And Megan Schaefer's up again for us with the staff.
Thank you. Just pulling up the aerial here. So this text amendment is to our Nickel Plate District Code, which is really our downtown Fishers area. So just to orient you here, where we're located right now is City Hall within the municipal complex within downtown Fishers. So I'm just going to turn on the zoning layer here. So the text amendment would only apply to Village Center within the Nickel Plate District, and you can see that that's highlighted here in orange. So that's the areas that this standard would apply to. So what we're proposing is the Nickel Plate District within the Village Center currently allows residential conversions for existing residential homes to commercial. We are proposing that any new home that's built as a residential dwelling unit remain residential for a minimum of 3 years from when the certificate of occupancy is issued, before it is converted to a commercial use. So just to clarify, the standard would not prohibit existing homes from converting to commercial properties, but any new home built after the adoption of this ordinance would be required to be occupied as residential for a minimum of 3 years. Any new commercial building, as identified in the code as it exists today, would still be allowed by right and would be required to meet minimum commercial zoning and building code requirements. This does not ban any businesses from locating within the Village Center District. Commercial uses and structures are still allowed to be permitted as allowed in the Nickel Plate District Code. This text amendment would still allow any existing residential structure the flexibility to convert to commercial, but would ensure that any new commercial building is built to minimum safety standards. So with that, this is a proposal by the City of Fishers, so we do recommend a favorable recommendation, and I'm here to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thanks, Megan. Any questions?
No public hearing, Rodney? Okay.
I just want to state that, I know that Indianapolis Star had made some, false reporting on this, that we were trying to prevent small businesses here in Fishers, and that's really not the case. That's a false narrative. We're really just trying to get builders to meet commercial standards if they're going to use it as commercial, and to meet those standards, but also not allow them a loophole to avoid our impact fees, is really the purpose of this. Is that correct, Megan?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wanting to address the commission may come to the podium. Please share your name and your address and limit your comments to the matter that we're discussing.
Oh, it's on there, sorry. Hello, my name's Joe Nixon. I'm the guy who built this house right here that's kind of the impetus of this proposed zoning change. The proposed change to the Village Center Nickel Code is a great opportunity to clean up the zoning framework for the Village Center and facilitate the development of a walkable, live-work-play area on a more neighborhood scale than the downtown. Lantern Road, in my opinion, should serve as a sort of main street running through the Village Center, lined with shops, stores, restaurants, specialty grocery stores, coffee houses, wine or craft beer tasting, boutique retail, and similar types of small businesses. The original Nickel Plate Code aligned with this vision. However, due to a series of changes a few years back, as well as the current proposed change, this vision cannot be realized under the current zoning framework. The stage has already been set. Over the past 5 years, I've brought over $50 million of redevelopment projects to the area, including multifamily projects, single-family homes, and small businesses. The neighborhood is taking shape and the direction is clear. It should be primarily core residential, with Lantern Road serving as a neighborhood mixed-use corridor. We are at a very critical juncture, as this area is in danger of stagnating if current redevelopment momentum is not allowed to continue. We are quickly approaching the point where existing older small homes are worth more as they currently exist than they are worth for redevelopment purposes. Once that happens, redevelopment shuts down and we will end up with an area that's awkwardly about 25% redeveloped and stagnates. So we really need to fix the zoning code immediately to facilitate continued momentum and achieve the initial vision for the area. We need a framework that will remove confusion and provide much needed clarity for developers, for existing property owners, for future property owners and for the Fishers Planning Department. Now, I have a few suggestions to propose. I think I'll let anybody else speak first, and then maybe if you guys have questions, I could talk about some of my proposed things at the end of the hearing. I would like to point out one thing and make one thing very clear. The existing code does not allow commercial buildings to be built in the village center. So the misunderstanding is actually that it sounds like, oh, we're okay with small businesses located here, we just want them done right. The only way to do them under the code is to build them as a residential structure and then convert them to commercial use. That's the only way to get small businesses in the area currently under the code. So I'm all for, if this is about commercial code, I'm all for creating a new building type that will allow small businesses to be built. That's totally fine. But we need to figure it out. We got to figure it out because it's not working. It's not working right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you may.
Hi. I'm Natalie Bean. I live at 8779 Morgan Drive, so right across the street from that Twigs and Tea. And I don't know anything about all the development lingo or any of that, but I do know that the reason I moved to that neighborhood is so that I could be near a vibrant sort of redeveloped community. And so I hope that whatever you decide doesn't inhibit that or prevent that from happening, or doesn't make it needlessly hard, or doesn't make it just less desirable a place for developers to put their money versus some other neighborhood I didn't move to. So if you could please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Nick Galvin, 7597 St. George Boulevard. Thank you for allowing all this today. Going to piggyback off that. We moved here about 3 years ago. Really love the walkability of Fishers, the expansion of everything. Nickel Plate Trail takes us directly to really everything that you guys have built. We appreciate that, and we want to continually see small, medium-sized businesses, the opportunity for other type of businesses, boutique, shops, beer and wine, and just other things that we can walk to, bring my kids to, and just continually have that Fishers vibe that you guys are really going for. So I appreciate it.
Good evening, Chad Arrett, 11235 Berkeley Circle. I echo everything the three individuals aforementioned. I think the residential feel for these businesses is key. We have enough monstrosities on 116th Street that we need to keep this quaint feel to this subdivision in this area for growth and prosperity. And I think this 3-year rule does really nothing from a safety standpoint. If we build a residence, what's going to change after 3 years? And as Pete mentioned earlier, if somebody wants to come in with the intention to make it commercial, after 3 years, what's the difference? Because if we can get a resident in there for 3 years, hands down, easy. So that rule really doesn't make any sense. And from a safety perspective, what's the difference? So I really plead with the board here to make it a standard on the residents to make the commercial and the residential side the same, but we want this look. We don't want, McDonald's type structures going in here, or Blaze or something like that. We want this feel. We want to be able to walk over to these places to shop, to eat, have a park, and be able to walk from Burberry Place over to here and not have the congestion of 116th Street. So I plead that we work together to make sure that we do this right and make this quaintness of these businesses as it stands today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Tom Kostakis. I live at 8712 Morgan Drive. I live 4 or 5 houses down from Twigs and Tea. My wife and I were fully invested. We invested in the live, work, play. Every single night, I'm pounding the Nickel Plate Trail. I stopped counting at 50 commercial establishments that I've walked to since we've lived here. We love it. With that said, I do think that there should be some bumpers put in place so that there's thoughtful development. You know, we're talking along Lantern Road here. We love Twigs and Tea. I haven't been to the salon next door because I'm follically challenged, but my wife's been there. I don't know that we'd be excited about a bar, because now you're talking about there's inadequate street parking there. There's not enough big enough lot for a parking lot along Lantern, and so they'd have to be parking down our block. And presumably on the weekends, it's sort of like what we've seen in the newspaper from our neighbors to the west, that bars and residential don't necessarily go well at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So I wouldn't be excited about that, but I do want walkability. It seems to me that what we're talking about here, and when we looked it up, some neighbors and I, that in the master plan for 2040, the Morgan Meadows is going to be taken out of the VC zoning. And so that there's going to be a core residential where we have all invested our money in our residences. And then along the perimeter, there's going to be the commercial. And so I'm trying to understand this proposal. Frankly, it seems like a little bit of a Band-Aid that we're trying to create an economic disincentive to somebody that would build at residential standards that is then going to try to convert to commercial, and maybe that's the way to go on the way to a more comprehensive plan. I mean, we want it to look residential, but at least as I'm understanding it, there's a difference between the external architectural framework and the building code and to what standards it's being built. So if this, you know, I wouldn't want somebody, there's a vacant lot next to us. I wouldn't want somebody to build something, whether it starts out as commercial there or goes in as residential for 3 years and converts to commercial. That's, I guess, our broader issue is there should be some comprehensive planning associated with what's going to be residential and what's going to be commercial, and it ought to be built with that clear intention and designation. This is residential according to residential standards. This is commercial according to commercial standards. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cameron Perkins, 8740 Morgan Drive. I live 2 doors down from Twigs. I'd like for you to define what is a bar, tavern, brew pub. What is the law with that type of business within 50 yards of the Fishers Elementary School? That's the second item.
We don't address that till you're done, sir.
Right. I just want your attention. Second, I would like to define what is residential on Morgan Drive and what is commercial on Lantern Road. We've invested heavily as well. I grew up in Hamilton County, lifetime resident. I love living where I'm at. You need to decide what's residential, what's commercial. Mixed use does not work. As my neighbor spoke, I do not want a bar or a body shop built on a lot in the neighborhood I'm in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Laura Barnes, 8722 Morgan Drive. I also live right next to where the previous 2 people that spoke live. And my main issue is, we love having Twigs and Tea and small commercial nearby us, but there needs to be parking associated with it if it's planned to be commercial. Currently, they're parking on down our street, and you know there's land behind it, and it seems like there could have been a plan for parking. So, Either it needs to be defined as commercial or residential, and there needs to be a plan for how we're going to approach parking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, President and Commissioners. My name is Luke Shaw, 11214 Tufton Street. I'm a longtime resident of Fishers, Indiana, 16 years specifically in the Brewery Place neighborhood. One of the reasons we moved to is the walkability of the area. We really like the vibrancy of Lantern Road. We have children that attend Fishers Elementary, and we just really want to keep developing this area in a way that is continue to walk for us, our children, our family, and also I'm kind of piggybacking on some of the remarks, echo some of those about the development, what's the difference between now and 3 years, what the long-term plan is, but that's really what attracted us to this area, and we want to continue to see this area thrive that's away from the yard, away from developments on 116th Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, sir, you've already spoken, right?
Well,
Yeah.
I was speaking on behalf of myself, Joe Nixon. Can I speak on behalf of Joe Nixon Properties? Or can I speak as the owner of another
Unfortunately, you get one opportunity, so we can't allow
I
your
can't
additional
represent,
response.
I can't
No.
represent another property owner on the,
No, you can't. Yeah,
it's my own LLC?
yeah,
Is that the law?
yes. Yeah.
I just wanted to address a few of the comments,
Yeah.
just to give a little additional information. I don't know if you guys want to actually work this out, or you just want to pass it, but.
No, thanks, Ron. Thanks we give you an opportunity to share your comments earlier, so we can't.
Yeah, when I said I'd leave and come back, you could have told me then I couldn't come back, and then I would have said what I wanted to say. Does every, I mean, I don't want to talk if I can't talk, but am I allowed to?
Again, if you look at what our attorney just told you, we have a right to give somebody a chance to speak at a public hearing. We've given you that right. If you have other comments, I urge you to get them into staff in writing. And if they're great comments, I'd love to incorporate that, because it's gonna go to council next, right? We're not the final say-so here. This is, we're either gonna make a favorable recommendation or unfavorable recommendation, or no action at this particular board. Then it's gonna move to the city council, where we will take final action. You could go ahead and request to make those comments that you want to make there through Megan Schaefer and her group. That will then be given to city council, and we will get all those at final decision. But I'm going to stay with Rodney's point that you've had your opportunity to speak, and we need to move forward.
I personally had my 2 minutes, and now I would like to speak on behalf of.
Again, you've had your opportunity, sir. I appreciate the comments that you made.
I've also tried to speak with Megan. It hasn't worked.
Thank you,
And this
sir.
is the public hearing. There's no
Yeah,
public
thank
hearing.
you, sir.
This is my one
Yeah.
shot.
At this time, I'm going to close our public hearing. And sir, you, as Mr. Peterson shared, you have an opportunity to share that
I've been
with the
working
staff
hard.
via email.
It's looking good. It's
Yeah.
looking good.
Yeah.
It's all gonna shut down. I'd like to keep doing it. I think you guys would like me to keep doing it.
So, we close the public hearing, right?
Yeah, the public
Megan,
hearing
can
has
you-
been closed.
Can you help me out with the Twigs and Teas building that he's talking about? Do our current standards, if they were to come and say, I want to make a boutique business, could he build a similar structure, with, obviously, and some of the commercial standards, I certainly understand. So from public safety, if there's a restaurant or anything inside of there, I need to make sure there's fire protection. I need to make sure there's ingress, egress points out for people to get in and out. I need to make sure that there's access for ADA. I need to make sure that there's ample parking, right? We need to make sure that the business it fits the zoning for that particular area, which we do have zoned. Currently, I don't know what's zoned there, what's not, without looking at the code map, Megan. But if they came to us and they said, I want to build a commercial women's boutique store that maybe serves tea in the back, could they build a similar structure to that under commercial code?
So the Nickel Plate District Code is a little bit different than your conventional zoning ordinance in that it's a form-based code. So I guess I'll address, two things. So first is the character of the structure, the architecture. The Nickel Plate Code in the Village Center specifically is set up to allow exactly the character of the homes that were being shown, the images that were shown. So the architecture, that character, that residential feel, that is a part of the character that's been built into this village center. And I apologize, let me pull this up. Yep, there you go. So you can see here, village center, this kind of explains the feel of it. A heavy focus on pedestrian activity, and then as well as just the character is defined as a tightly knit community that is in town with buildings pulled close to the primary streets, while creating frontages that promote interaction with neighborhoods. So that is the intent of the code as it exists today, and that is not changing. What is allowed under the village center is its building types. So it's not necessarily dictating what the uses are, although the uses can be defined within these building types. But if you can see here, and I don't know if I'll be able to pull it up. So here are all the building types that are allowed within Village Center currently. So that does include mixed use. It includes a live-work unit. It includes a small office, multifamily, townhouse development, civic or institutional, plus the residential conversions. The residential conversions was really put in place because we knew that south of 116th Street along Lantern Road, there were a bunch of existing residential homes, and we weren't sure how that area was going to develop, and we wanted to allow flexibility for those homes to convert to commercial if that was what the market, where that was going. We've seen it built out a little bit more, and so we've seen more residential really within, to the west of Lantern Road, south of Morgan Drive. So when we did our comp plan update this year, we really identified that area as core residential, and then we saw that the commercial was mainly along Lantern Road, north here, just closer to South Street. And so our vision would be for this area in between where the Pullman Point development is and the existing Gradison development to remain residential, and then there being some commercial along where the Twigs and Tea is currently located. So that is our vision.
So no more.
Mr. Peters, Public comments closed, sir. No, public comments closed. Megan, go ahead and finish.
So with the Twigs and Tea, because it's to preserve the residential character in this area, so as was mentioned, a brewery, would that be allowed in this area? No, because that has outdoor seating. That's more of a heavily, more intense retail use. And so because it's so close to these existing residential neighborhood, we wouldn't want that use to really impact that area. Twigs and Tea is a dining establishment, if you want to call it that. And it is going to have outdoor seating, so it is going to need a variance through the BZA to be allowed there. But we would allow the office type development, really commercial, that's not going to negatively impact the surrounding residential area.
Okay, thanks, Megan. And what I tell you, sir, is I'm going to urge you, because I want to know what you have to say. I truly do. But we've got to follow state law, and state law gave us that. So I don't mean to be hard on you. So please get those written comments to Megan, because I'll talk with you afterwards. But I need you to get those written comments to Megan to find out if there's any bridging. Right, I appreciate exactly what you're saying. I also appreciate what some of the other residents are saying. Because if I'm living down there, I don't want a bar next to me either. And I'd worry about parking like crazy down there, what's going on. So again, when we're looking at commercial versus residential, there's a distinct difference in the way those things are built and the reviews that you go through at a city level to get that done. And what we don't want is somebody kind of skirting around that issue to say, I'm going to build a house, but no one wanted to buy it, so I'm going to turn it into something, right? Then they kind of supersede all sorts of other things that go on in terms of development standards and impact fees and everything else that Selena already talked about, right, during this process. That's not, we're not trying to confuse it. We're trying to make sure that everybody's playing by the same rules. So I will listen to you afterwards, but I need you to get that information over to her because she's really going to disseminate that back to council. Now, again, I'm going to tell you that this is not a decision-making body, right? We're going to make a favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation, okay, to City Council. At that point, City Council will make the final decision. So this is just a statutory requirement through state law that we have to do this and have public hearing. And I appreciate every one of your comments, and I listened to every single one of you, and I really heard everything that you guys said. And I want to make sure we make the right decision here, right? But I want to make sure that we're collaborating, too, to make sure we haven't missed anything. Because we're not perfect, right? And I get it. So I'm going to listen to you because you're a developer, and know a little bit about that too, since I work for a developer, so I get it, right? So we'll talk and we'll get that migrated over to the right part where it should be, and then it can come back to council as necessary. So that's what I'm gonna do there. So those are my comments, and Megan, I appreciate everything that you've kind of aligned there, and I think hopefully you've given the residents who were there, you know, at least satisfaction that we're not gonna go ahead and put a brewery in their backyard. So, anyway, that's all I've got.
Thanks, Pete, for those comments. Anyone else have any comments on the
I
board?
have a quick question. Megan, will there be at some point a list of things, like we have other areas where we'll say you can't have like a McDonald's, and you can't have something that has a drive-through and things? Will there be anything more specific? Is that already in there, in that village? Okay.
Yeah, so the Nickel Plate District Code does have a list of uses that are prohibited just in the downtown area in general.
Thank you.
I have a question, Megan. How do you make allowances for parking? Say I've got a house and I've been here for 22 years, and then I decide I want to put in a beauty salon. Are there requirements for people that you have to meet parking? Because I read up there, it's like on the street, so that's kind of shady or shaky to me.
So we do have minimum parking requirements based on the uses. Let me see if I can zoom this in. But that does include on-street parking. So we do allow a development that comes in to utilize on-street parking as their parking count. But they would need to meet the minimum requirements as set out within this parking table. So for example, Village Center restaurant, minimum that's going to be required is 1 per 3 seats. Maximum, because we do have a maximum, we want to kind of, since it is a walkable area, we want to discourage over parking, and so we also have a parking maximum.
Thank you. Any more questions from the board? Yeah. At this time, I would entertain a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion to make a favorable recommendation to council, but I do want those comments to come to Megan. And Megan, I want you to make sure we disseminate those comments back to council for Monday's reading.
Will do.
Thank you.
We have a motion for a favorable recommendation. Do we have a second? We have a second. Kay, roll call, please.
Mr. Stewart. Mr. Fain. Ms. Logan. Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Ms. Stoller. Mr. Richards. Ms. Kelly. Ms. Lang. And Mr. Stevenson.
Yes, the motion does carry. We don't have any old business on the agenda. Staff communications?
So I'll just give you an update from council as well. That might be later on the agenda. But they did approve the change of tenant standard that Pete was mentioning earlier. So that was approved and adopted into the UDO, as well as the allowance for the State Road 37 temporary signage while that's under construction. Additional staff comments is that this fall we are planning to host a working lunch for Plan Commission, just for us to touch base on procedures, and then any updates to our rules and procedures for 2022. So you guys can expect to see an email here in the coming week on scheduling.
Thanks, Megan. Seeing no additional agenda items, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Second.